the tension only heightens from all the action, because if you plan to have a class revolt in a post-apocalyptic setting, you now have to account for the fact that it's a damn train. Hello and welcome to Blockbuster Review. If you don't know what that is, it is where I play a single game of Tetris Marathon and try to review a film before the blocks reach the top or until 150 lines. Spoilers are at line 50, and we start when it says go. Snowpiercer is a movie that, well, I slept on. I was told by a bunch of folks who know me and know that I like movies that I should watch it. And I know it was directed by the same gentleman who made Parasite, which I really, really enjoyed. And I kept adding it to streaming service watch lists and never getting around to it. But I finally knuckled down and showed some discipline and watched it. And, I mean, slight spoiler, I think it's awesome. Basically, it centers around this character named Curtis, who lives in the back car of a self-sustaining locomotive that was made by this semi-crazy railroad magnate who, according to the propaganda supplied to the children in the school car, he knew that this plan to curb global warming was going to lead to a frozen Earth, so he created this self-sustaining locomotive that, what's the word? I wish I remember the word that means to go across the entire... circumnavigate. It can circumnavigate the entire globe in 1 year. So, this train, every year for 17 years, has braved the snow and ice around the entire world, and all of humanity is inside. But humanity is separated into separate cabins or sections, and it's pretty clear from the beginning, if you're in the back section, you don't mean much at all. The security force just comes into the back section to take children. That's a big point in the beginning. It takes a couple of kids. It takes a man who knows violin and just takes him out. And Curtis and his second-in-command, Edgar, are clearly coming up with a plan of action to revolt. Now, this all takes place on a train, which does a couple of things. And this is why I'm slowing down the Tetris for a second. It provides immediate tension, and the setting is so constricted that the tension only heightens from all the action. Because if you plan to have a class revolt in a post-apocalyptic setting, you now have to account for the fact that it's a damn train. And it's not like you can go anywhere, and your enemy is on the same vehicle as you, and you are fighting. It's all close quarters combat, basically. So they have a plan. It sort of works. There's like this pseudo-leader named Gilliam, played by John Hurt. He kills it. Also, the second-in-command is played by a guy named Jamie Bell. He kills it. Octavia Spencer plays Tanya, whose son gets taken away. She kills it. Chris Evans is Curtis. He kills it. I mean, it's one of those things where he's almost too pretty to be in a post-apocalyptic movie, but we let it go because he's a movie star. But it's like, okay, we get it. Captain America is the down-on-his-luck guy, but is also gorgeous in this crazy situation. We're at spoiler territory, so they make this plan to make to the front of the train. They break out the head of security, played by Song Kang-ho, who he kills it too, and you believe he is a drug addict for this drug that's made by industrial waste, but it's also incredibly flammable. That comes back. There's so much to talk about this movie, and I feel like I'm not going to get to all of it, and I barely started. But he agrees to open up a door if they give them 2 blocks of this drug, one for him and one for his daughter, who he also breaks out of the prison car, which is basically just like tiny little morgue closets for bodies. So they start going through the cars. You see the insane levels of disconnect from the 2 different classes. There's an implication that The people in the back row were the folks that just got on the train without a ticket, which is why they were treated so badly, even though it's 17 years later and they're having children because everybody lives on the train. But the other trains, they're having parties, they have spas, they have this pretty dope-ass party train. But the thing I noticed, which is comes into spoiler territory, everybody else has this drug that this head of security was put into jail for. So I was like, why is that a problem? It seems like the drug is okay because everybody else is having this drug at this party. They get to the front finally. Curtis loses his mentor, Gilliam. He loses his buddy Edgar. And he gets to the front of this train, and he's told by Gilliam, when you get to Wilford, who is the guy that made the train, who owns the train, who runs the train, don't let him speak. Kill him before he has a chance. And I was like, oh shit, this guy's like, he's a fast talker, he's a trickster. This guy has some old business with him, and he knows, like, if this guy gets to talking, he's gonna worm a deal out. That's what sets up for you. When Curtis finally gets to the end, the guy who's been helping him this whole time, the head of security, he goes like, I don't want to open his door. I want to open the door to the real world. Because I have a theory that it's not as frozen as it used to be. I think we can get out there and survive. We don't have to live like this at all. We don't have to have different systems and cars and worry about everybody. We can just get out. Chris Evans' character, Curtis, finds out, oh, his buddy Gilliam was talking to Wilford the entire time. His whole existence is a part of the ecosystem of the train, and people have to live and die and be taken away. It's all a part of it. And then Wilford, who's played by Ed Harris, who's killing it, dude. Absolutely killing it. I want to make sure I got the name right. Is Ed Harris? I also don't want to... Yes, Ed Harris. He's killing it. And basically says, I don't want to run this train anymore, and I'm going to die. Somebody else has to run this train and understand what a intricate system it is. And then Chris Evans notices, oh yeah, the kids that were taken earlier, they've now been given rudimentary jobs in the engine of this train. So now the children are being treated like machines because they need to have their place. Because if not, then the train dies and then humanity dies. Chris Evans says, fucks that. He says, fucks that. It's written very well. He gets one of the boys out of there. They end up blowing up the train, and it ends with this moment of humanity when the head of security's daughter and the boy that we were trying to save are the only two to make it off the train, but they see a polar bear in the distance, implying that life has come back to the Earth, because it was supposed to be so frozen that nothing can live. Now, here's where I gush over this movie. This movie does something that it's hard to explain unless you see it so plainly, and this movie does it. Symmetry. Every piece of this movie leads to the end of the movie, and every piece of the movie has a purpose in it. And it's kind of insane because there's all these scenes where you think like, oh, this is just world building, these are just characters. But then when you look back on what happened, and that's the kind of thing I won't spoil for you, when you go back and think about certain scenes of that movie, everything is set up for everything else. And the idea that Gilliam was in on it the whole time, and Chris Evans' guilt, he gives a really insane performance of a scene where, I don't want to spoil exactly what he says, but where you realize like, oh, this is why he feels so bad about this situation. He has seen the absolute worst of humanity and partook in it, and he just wants everybody to be better. Snowpiercer. Rules. You should watch it. I believe it's currently on Netflix and Hulu, I think. I watched it on Hulu. I think it's also on Netflix. Could be wrong. But Snowpiercer. It's worth a watch. Peace.